we spend so much time outwardly focused on how to shift things in our lives that we're unhappy with. So we seek out the personal development world. And many times, especially early on in our journey, we fail to see that it's actually our belief system that's standing in the way. It's old paradigms that we have bought into. That's the thing blocking us from having the life or the business or the success that we really desire.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Interview Day on the podcast. I am so thrilled for you to listen in. As I've gotten to know today's guest over the last little while, I feel a sense of sisterhood with her. She embodies grace, hope, and a deep belief in our ability to transform, along with a side of reflecting what we really need to see and hear that we may be avoiding. It's fierce truth with a generous side of love. Keri Kugler is an embodiment coach, heart-centered business mentor, and a devoted student of this life-changing work. She believes every woman on the planet has access to a power within her that is stronger than any force we have ever known. She's on a mission to help women shed their limitations, release their past, and create an entirely new story for their lives, one that is rooted in personal power, leadership, and full-bodied alignment of the woman they are here to be. Keri creates a space for women to take off their armor and feel safe in being fully seen, a space where vulnerability and raw truth are welcomed with open arms. She blends science and spirituality into her work with the sole intention to tap women into their power center. I felt more tapped into my power center during our conversation today. Get ready to tune in and enjoy. Hi, Keri. Thank you so much for being here. You've joined me on Instagram Live before, and it was such a rich conversation. And I'm thrilled to dive in more deeply with you today.
Me too. I'm so excited, so happy, so honored to be here. Thank you.
And in your work as an embodiment coach, and I love how you call yourself a heart-centered business mentor and devoted student of this life-changing work. Like, I feel like that's so... It's a beautiful type of coach to work with because you're still growing. You're not claiming to know all of the things. You're claiming to know the things you've experienced on your journey that you've worked with people through, and you continue on this journey. So it's like you're journeying along with your clients and the community that you've developed. So it's beautiful. And you've spoken about how you know what it feels like to be in a season of deep transformation. And from hearing your story, I can see that you, like all of us, have come through a variety of seasons. What are some of the most pivotal transformative seasons that you've experienced in your life that have shaped and continue to shape your work?
Oh, we're going right in.
We go deep fast because that's how you and I roll, Keri.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. So again, like a lot of us, I think just the last 18 months for everybody has been an intense season of growth. Whether we were ready for it or not, we were all just kind of like catapulted into this. So, I think that there's something to be said about that I think we are all navigating a lot right now. For me, one of the things, without a doubt, has been motherhood. My son is going to be 2 in January. So we had him just a few months before the everything hit, pandemic wise and with COVID. So I had a few short months of being a mama in the world that we all thought that we knew. And then, everything hit. So it was just a lot of really rapid growth at one time. And in that time, I was also coming back into my business as a new mother. So that all three of those things, pandemic, motherhood, not to mention creating and stepping into to what felt like a brand new identity for me and coming back into my business, is without a doubt one of the most intense seasons. And I would say that this year too has been as challenging, or if not more challenging. And here's the crazy thing about this is that I claimed for myself this year that I was going to sort of up level in every area of my life, but from a place that felt really good to me. And with that, the universe heard me and said, all right, I see. And when I say up level, I have this really big vision on my heart. And the universe heard me loud and clear and said, I see you, I hear you, and we've got this stuff that you've got to go through first. So I feel like this year I've been in the testing grounds to really show me what I'm capable of holding, because my dreams and my vision for myself, my business, my family, and the women that I work with are really big. So this year has called me to step forward in a really, really big way into my own embodiment, into my own personal power. So I think the motherhood growth spurt has led me right here.
Oh, yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine just those early months as everything was starting to come down the pike. You know, when I had my kids, I was taking a hiatus from everything so I could just dive right in, and it was winter and it was quiet. And so I didn't have that kind of challenge to navigate. So my heart is with you and with all the other mamas and young families who had to navigate this and feel like they were in a vacuum in many cases. And so being a young mom and a young family going through this, what were some of the ways that you navigated it? Like, did you have a community surrounding you that you could turn to, or were you feeling really like you were in a cocoon?
Mm. And this is just my experience, but I feel like as new mothers, community or not, we through a really intense transformation. And so I think it's both. I felt isolated on an island where no one understood me, even though I had people all around me. But what really helped me is to ask for the support, to remember that I didn't have to do it all on my own, and that it was okay to just admit, hey, I feel like I'm on an island all on my own and I have no idea what I'm doing. I was like, oh, you can let your guard down and let people in and let them support you. So I did. I had the community. The challenge for me was to admit that I really needed help. And then in some moments I was struggling.
Mm. Yeah, there's this, especially if you've waited a bit to have children. For myself,
Mm-hmm.
I was like 34 when I gave birth. And so used to being self-sufficient, so used to figuring things out. And if you've been on a transformation journey like you have and like I have, you can kind of second guess needing to ask, which is funny because we all need help. And so I feel like this last 18 months, a lot of people have come to this realization along with us that, asking is powerful. It's empowering. And, showing that human side of us that needs that connection point, it actually brings so much joy to that person who's giving the help as well. We want to feel needed.
Yes.
And so it's so beautiful. I love it. I love that I've been really enjoying watching you go through the seasons with your son and with your husband, and just seeing him grow before my eyes. I'm like, goodness, he's gotten so big. I saw him at a pumpkin patch recently, and that was great. And so Let's backtrack a little bit though to where you were born and raised and kind of what was life like? What kind of life did you have prior to launching out on your own? Are you living in the same region that you grew up?
Yes. Yes, we're here where, I mean, not in the exact place, but in the general vicinity. So yeah, we're close to home.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that in your story, you've come through a lot that probably is what catapulted you
Mhm.
into wanting to do this work with women to help them come home to themselves and find the strength within to shine. Was there a pivotal moment? Or was it a series of moments that launched you into this work? I know that your background is also in yoga. So maybe tell us a little bit about that backstory.
Yeah. It was definitely a, a building of events that led me to this work. Um, and yoga was the catalyst for me. About it was 9 years ago. Um, I did my first yoga teacher training, and I got into it just for the physical side of yoga. But I did a really intense training that was centered around trauma informed yoga teachers. And there was some neuroscience embedded in it. And it was just so rich in knowledge. So little did I know what I had signed up for wasn't just about how to show people how to do a downward facing dog. And it showed me very early on into the training that, like, I guess it didn't show me isn't the right word, but I just felt like I had found, it's so crazy because it's hard to put this into words. It's like I finally found my place in the world. Like I found something where I came alive.
Mm.
And I was 29 at the time. So it was just a pretty big shift. Like you're moving into your 30s. And I did it. It showed me how 29 years of my life, I had just been moving through the motions and living a life that was just all of the things, but it was just kind of this surface level way of being. And I really started to understand, like, oh my God, I don't know who I am. And there's so much here for me to learn. So as hard as it is to put into words, it was a feeling. It was this belonging, this like, oh my God, I've found my place. I've found my work. And from that moment, it became, and sometimes healthy, sometimes a little unhealthy. It became an obsession. And it's just, I've devoted my life to it ever since.
Mm. Yes. And when we are discovering this thing we can get so passionate about, yeah, we can push it to the other end of the spectrum sometimes too.
Yes.
It's healthy, I think, to do that because you're kind of pushing your edges. And then you come to a realization of, okay, let's kind of let the pendulum swing back a bit
Yeah.
for some balance. Did you always know that you had an ability to work well with people and help them to go deep to improve their
Mm,
lives? Like, did you have an inkling that your work in the world would be connected to somehow connecting with people?
100%. There has, I have known from even before I found the world of personal development. And even when I was going through yoga teacher training, I knew, even before I knew what I was doing, that I was here to touch people on a much deeper level. And I remember having conversations like, my work is going to go beyond standing in front of a class and leading people through asana. And I had no idea because at that time, the coaching world, I'm sure it was a thing, but it wasn't what it is today. I didn't even know it was a thing. But so I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew. And a lot of it did. I feel it came from my past and how I grew up. It was just this knowing, this deep inner knowing that I was here to help on a deeper level.
having that deeper purpose helps us to see each day through fresh eyes and to see the opportunities that come up around us, and maybe even want to hear what the stories are behind the people in our lives. And so, in the work that you do now, what are some of the things that women tend to struggle the most with? And what are some of the questions that you ask them to help them clarify how they're feeling?
Mm. You have really powerful questions. They make me think, and I love that. I would say one of the things that they struggle with the most is self-worth.
Mhm.
And here's the thing. We all have our own form of this, our own way in what this looks like. I think that it can disguise itself in different conditioning and different patterns and come out in our adult life in a number of different ways. But it's this sense, or I should say a lack of feeling whole and complete within themselves. And what I really see that it boils down to is just not having a relationship with themselves, not knowing how to meet themselves and simply be with them. And and I'll tell you, like, one of the ways that I approach this with clients is I kind of reframe it as a relationship. And because the relationship with ourselves is like any other relationship that we have. If you want a relationship to thrive and to have a really solid foundation, you've got to get to know the person. You've got to be vulnerable and you have to be open. You can't avoid them. You can only spend time with them when it's convenient. You can't hide things. You've got to be in integrity. You've got to honor your word with the other person. And we go to leaps and bounds to do this for other people. But very often, and I think it's done unconsciously a lot of the time, we are the last person that we do this for. And we don't even think that, like, oh, that the relationship with myself is something that I've got to cultivate and nurture, and to even know that it's something that exists in the first place. I noticed that this really helps something to click with a lot of people of, like, oh, if this was a partner, if this was my child, what I want to be nurturing the relationship like this, would they even want to spend time with me? Like, if I treated them the way that I treat myself, how would that outwardly look? So that piece is always a big wake up call.
Oh, yes. I feel like it's so easy for us to abandon ourselves in the service of others, and serving others and being there for them. That's wonderful. Like, we need that. And like you say, that piece of also then how do we serve ourselves? Like, how do we really take that time for ourselves? And when you see it through the lens, especially as a mother, where at first you're starting out with this tiny little being who really needs you for absolutely everything. And then slowly you're teaching the child independence, like in tiny little steps to the point where eventually they're headed off. In that process, it's so easy for us to lose ourselves as well because we have put so much effort into that, into creating a home space and a relationship space and all of the teaching. And I've found that as I've been raising my boys, that, you're always looking for those teachable moments. They pop up and I'm like, ooh, this is a good one. And as I'm teaching and as I'm sharing a piece of wisdom with them, I'm like, ooh, right. I need to go back on that with myself and spend
Yes.
I need to dive a little deeper with mama on that one.
Yes.
It's like they are huge mirrors for us. And so I'm
Mhm.
grateful for that. And I'm grateful
Yes.
there's people like you who remind us, take the time. It is the best investment.
Mhm. It really is. And oh, they're such little mirrors. It is, even as my son is just, I mean, he can say some words and he's got one sentence, which is, I love you, by the way, was his first sentence.
Yay.
Crazy. But even at that tiny age, they are mirrors. And often triggers and all of the things. It's really beautiful to witness. I really acknowledge you for just seeing that and modeling that for your children, because I think that that's a missing piece as to why so many women get to this place where they're later on in lives and they see, I actually don't know how to be with myself, because it's not something that was modeled
Right.
for us growing. And maybe it was, but my past and my childhood, it was one of the big things that did catapult me into that inner knowing. And I truly, truly believe that my parents did the best that they could with what they have. And I love them and accept them. And our relationship is better now than it has ever been before. But things like this, it wasn't modeled for me. So a lot of my work was unlearning so many things that I thought were true about myself and about the world, and essentially reconditioning myself. And I think that the women in this world, mother or not, but just us being in this work and being an example, it creates such a huge ripple effect. It really, really does. Like, we don't realize how powerful it is just to be in the work. So, and I just say that because it's like, even if you don't have this calling to necessarily lead people or be a coach or teach a yoga class, just you being committed to bettering yourself has more of an impact than people realize.
Absolutely. And in this world of what, 8 billion people now, and let's just assume that half are women,
Mm-hmm.
in a culture that since the beginning of time, women were socialized to have very limited roles, important roles, but very limited roles.
Yep.
And joy may have been fleeting because there was so much effort to put into each day. So culturally and ancestrally, we've been taught to cut off from a lot of these emotions to get stuff done. We need the masculine and the feminine. We need these structures and we need the feeling. And yet the masculine structure has definitely taken precedence over a lot of that feeling and that inner work. And so with that, it's so easy for us to sweep under the rug important things that could help us in our relationships and in our lives. And so now, in the time we are, where yes, coaching is a thing, and there's reparenting coaches, which I think is such an incredible,
Oh God,
incredible thing,
me
because
too.
I feel like every single one of us, whether we're a parent or not, we need to reparent ourselves and give ourselves a
Yes.
love that perhaps was not shown to us or was not accessible because
Yes.
either it just wasn't there or our parents just didn't have access to that information. And
Mm.
they may have had so much love for us, and yet there was still culturally some things holding us back. So the fact that there's so many coaching opportunities coming up for people, well, there's 4 billion women on the planet, and then 8 billion of us, hey, like, we need this. So I feel like in some ways, there's a global healing slowly starting to surface.
Yes,
And it's so amazing to be a part of it.
it is. I mean, I know personally, I'm honored to be a part of it. And it also, it just gives me so much hope for what's possible for us, and to just see even the coaching industry and as 2020 and 2021 are coming along, the world of personal development is becoming like a mainstream thing. And sure, are there things that go along with that? Yes, but I really do feel that there is this healing and this higher consciousness that's being awakened in everybody. And it is a beautiful thing to witness.
Right. And if more of us are taking those moments to tune in to heal those parts of ourselves that are broken, if we can focus in on healing that, then that is like a healing balm for everyone, for the nations. And we're showing up as whole people, or at least more so whole, and hopefully more empathetic and more
Yes.
loving and kind. Some of those old structures are starting to crumble, and it takes time.
Yeah. Yep.
But we have each other, and we have this community to move through it. I've found that so much of moving into a healthier, more empowered version of ourselves involves really challenging our belief systems. Like, that's what really feeds into this.
Mm.
So in your life, what were some of the belief systems or ideas about how you operate that, like, how did they shift as you learned more about yourself? And what results did you start to see? Like, can you pinpoint any specific beliefs that you realized were not serving you and you shifted those?
Oh my God. I seriously feel like this could be a whole other podcast. This is one of my most favorite things to get into and to talk about, because I believe that, I mean, our beliefs create everything, 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 right? They're sort of the catalyst for our thoughts, right? T. Harv Eker talks about this: thoughts plus feelings plus actions equal results. And those things come from our beliefs. So our beliefs are what sort of controls our thoughts, and that creates our emotions and our actions. And outwardly, that is the reality that is reflected back to us. And it's something that, again, I think that a lot of people are unaware of, that we spend so much time outwardly focused on how to fix things, how to shift things in our lives that we're unhappy with, right? So we seek out the personal development world, and we do this and we do that and we do this. And many times, especially early on in our journey, we fail to see that it's actually our belief system that's standing in the way. It's old paradigms that we have bought into. That's the thing blocking us from having the life or the business or the success that we really desire. Again, I'm such an advocate for like belief work and reprogramming. Personally, there have been so many beliefs, and even still, I see things come up in my life that I'm like, this is happening because I believe this to be true. So I just want to say that I also believe that this is a work that we never get to a place where we're done, right, and have nowhere else to go. For women, for humans that are committed to growth and evolution over a lifetime, it's like layer after layer after layer, right? But one of the things that sticks out to me was around believing that I'm a woman who's always going to struggle. Because I brought up, my mother was 15 years old when she had me. We just had a really shaky, we'll call it shaky, foundation growing up. So, and she struggled. My mom struggled. My dad struggled. My family didn't have hardly any money. And it was just, these memories, of being a child and watching my parents struggle. Even before I knew it was a thing, it was this felt sense of like, ooh, this doesn't feel stable, right? And even growing up, watching them struggle with money and whatever else, I sort of adopted this belief that, okay, this is what I saw. So these were the patterns that started creating themselves in my life. So I continued to struggle with different choices and patterns, and with money and with jobs. And I saw that it was because I held the belief that I'm just somebody that struggles. This is just the way it is for somebody like me. This is how you were brought up. This is what you were brought into. This is the way it's going to be. So that belief, of course, it created everything around me.
Oh, yeah. And you don't realize until sometimes you're shown by someone. I find, like, when there are those beautiful way showers,
Yes.
will then say, actually, you know what? You can change the story. It doesn't have to stay this way. Mm-hmm. Because unless we are seeing someone who's, say, come from a different, like a similar experience, but has a different life now, that they've pulled themselves from that, we don't believe it's possible.
Yes.
And so your story now and what you've come through, you're able to show others in your work, hey, it's okay. It can change. It can be so, so much better than you can imagine. Mm-hmm. So who was that for you? Was it a person that you came across? What happened for you? Was it the yoga journey that you were on that brought you out of that? Or was it a specific person that you met that just showed you something different was possible?
Mm-hmm. Yoga was more of I would say the foundation that really showed me that something else was possible. It wasn't until I started really getting deep into this work. And when I mean deep, like hiring a personal mentor
Mm-hmm.
and a coach, that the work really started to transform. But, just like with everything else, we go through phases and there's no journey that's ever linear or predictable.
Right.
So I think everyone's path is going to look different. But for me, yoga really opened up like, hey, you have a home here. You actually do have a purpose. And where that next layer for me was really seeing that not only do you have a purpose, but you've been living inside of this box, sort of having tunnel vision. And there's so much else out here for you to discover, but you just have to see that it's possible. So I remember hiring my first ever mentor and business coach. And she just opened up a completely new world for me. And then after that, I went and worked with or studied under, and they're really well known, Alexi Panos and Preston Smiles. I trained with them and led leadership conferences with them, and they just broke everything open and essentially shattered the belief system that I thought that I knew. And I love that you touched on having the evidence. And that's why community is so important. That's why I believe in this industry and what we do, whether it be coaching or mentor or therapy, like whatever it is for you, it's so important to be able to calibrate to that and see that, oh my God, something else is possible. It's just to have that evidence it's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And I know for myself, as I've looked out at different people doing different work, and there's books I've read and, different podcasts, hearing people's stories of like what their journey, like the hero's journey in their own life or their
Yes.
heroine journey,
Yes.
we like to
Heroine
refer
journey.
to it.
Yes.
And seeing now how they're living. And I see where my limitations are because like, okay, they did this, and now they have a personal chef and someone does all of their laundry and they have, and they have, whatever the case, all of these different kind of structures and systems that helps them grow and grow and grow. That's when I see, oh, okay, those limitations, they just expand. And then you reach a different level in your own personal journey. And then you see, oh, there's more limitations that do you want to expand to that? What does it look like for you? And so having these way showers in whatever form really help us to tune into also like what is resonating for us. Like when we're looking outside of ourselves and saying, well, that looks really cool. That's something maybe we're yearning for, or we're able to celebrate somebody else's success. And yet it's not something that resonates personally for us. We're just happy for them. Okay, maybe that's not a direction that I'm going to go in. These are beautiful indicators, but it all comes back to what's our gut telling us? How does it feel? Is there an excitement edging us forward towards it? Or is there something telling us you're doing okay right where you are for now?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing these things is really empowering. As you're working with women, I know you love to put out different shorter and longer version training sessions and group experiences, and you do one-on-one. I'd love for you to share kind of what are the tiers of how people can work with you and what are some of the ways you integrate people into your practice?
Yeah. So I usually do a live group experience once a month. And because what I like to do is have something for every woman, depending on her, like where she's at on her journey. Mm-hmm. So I have free master classes that I do once a month, but then I also have live experiences that go a little bit deeper. And then I have my one-on-one private work, which is like where we just go all the way in. And I guess as far as tiers go, what usually when women come in, like the thing that is the biggest for them that really opens things up for them to be able to see, okay, this is either where I want to go, or like you were saying, this really speaks to me. Maybe don't want to go in that direction, but like it just, that piece is awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. And it sounds so simple, but a lot of my work is stripping back a lot of the noise and coming back to the basics, because just that foundation, any foundation is so important. So the first thing that I do with any woman is have we open up this level of awareness and allow them to see themselves and their lives like they haven't before, to then begin laying this foundation. So whether that's they come in and, dive into a masterclass and they're like, okay, I'm going to take this and integrate it. Or they're like, okay, I want to take this deeper and do a live experience or one of my masterminds. Or I have some women come in and do a masterclass. And they're like, I'm ready to hire you one-on-one. Let's do this for 6 months. And we just go. But it's really, it all depends on what they need and what they have the desire for, and what their goals are. But again, just circling back to that evidence, a lot of women come into my world and hear my story and see that something else is possible for them. And they want in, right? They see that it's possible, and something gets activated in them that says, I'm ready.
You do so much that, like you say, the free master classes, you show up all the time on Instagram with some beautiful wisdom in your posts and in your stories. And I find it just so encouraging. Mm-hmm. And of course, you have the Aligned Woman podcast, which I love to listen to when it releases every Friday. And it's like you're having a conversation with me. And
great.
Letting me in to what you're moving through, but also what you're teaching through. And it's it's like a glimpse, I would think, of what it would be like to coach with you. And so anyone who's listening, check out the Aligned Women podcast, because there's, especially the most recent episodes, are stripping back some beautiful truths. And I love what you said about peeling back to the simplicity. And you were talking about this in a recent episode of your podcast, where it was like, it's not about adding on more practices. It's not about more new things. It is about using what you already have that is actually going to serve you. Like, you have a lot in your arsenal of teaching already. Each of us do. Some of them we need to be spending more time in than others. So let's focus in on that. And so you're offering the support to help people do that. Because frankly, I think having a coach just keep us focused on one or two things, that's where it's at, because it's easy for us to always just chase the newest thing. And like you say, hear all the noise and think we need to do everything. And then we end up just spinning in circles, running in all different directions, and not making any change in our lives.
Yes, I just finished up wrapping up with a private client. We worked together since January of this year. And one of her biggest pieces of feedback was, she's like, I've always been a seeker. I've loved this work. I love getting knowledge and consuming. She's like, but our work together helped me to embody everything that I had learned. And she said, in a sense, I felt like the work I was consuming was separate. Like it was something I had to get to. And our work and our path really allowed me to see that it was an extension of who I am. And I was just like, oh, that's it. There's such an integration when you work with someone one-on-one, that the work becomes your own. It's so beautiful.
It is. And knowing that as a coach, the mirror that you are to the other person, it's something you're able to show them and reflect back to them very often what they can't see. Because very, very often I find, like in my life and many people I connect with as well, who don't see the goodness in them. They only see the flaws. We focus in on those imperfections. And someone who has some kind of knowledge, as you do, being able to reflect back, actually, here are the pieces of light in you, the genius that you can't see. And just having someone to witness that is often the only thing each of us needs to finally make some progress, to get unstuck.
Yes. And there's something, just to add this, and I know you can speak to this, there's the space being between two women. To have another woman hold space for you in that way, there's just a bond, there's a sisterhood where you feel safe and being seen. That's like nothing else. And that's like, that is a girl power thing. Like, I believe that, yes, men are so amazing, but there is just, when two women come together, there's something really powerful that they can unlock together.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Just a deep knowing, that whole
Yep.
experience, the life experience, the lenses that we look through life with.
Mm.
And yes,
Yes.
we love our men.
We love
Men
you.
are awesome. I love my husband. I love my
Same.
boys,
Yes.
And I love being in a world where there are so many men who are showing how much more conscious they are. Like even just
Yes.
watching my husband share some things, I'm like, oh, he really is highly evolved. Like I knew it, but sometimes you need to be reminded. Like it just some of the things he'll say at times, I'm like, wow,
Yes.
really are amazing. I guess that's why I've been with him for so long. Right?
I know, same. Even if I know your husband's quote unquote in the work, but I've noticed too, like when I stop trying to coach my husband, you evolve like, oh my God, you blow my mind right now. And I'm not even like trying to force it. It's incredible.
It is a beautiful thing. Oh, and yes, and in my case, I need my tribe of sisters because
Yes.
most of my sisterhood is more verbose than the guys in my life. They're like, okay, got it in 3 bullet points, we're done.
Yes. I need
we
more,
need to
please.
we need to have that space to just let it flow.
Yes. You have a couple of
Oh.
hours. Come on.
Tell us, where can people find and follow you to work with you and to get in on all this beautiful wisdom you have to share?
Yes. I would say the easiest way is Instagram. I have a 4-month option and a 6-month option. And the link to read up on that and just to see the different methods and practices that I use in my work and just to really get into the vibe and feel. There's a link in my bio inside of Instagram, but you can always reach out to me, send me a message. My Instagram handle is Keri_Kugler_.
Wonderful. And I will have that linked. I also will have your website and your podcast linked in the show notes
Awesome.
for people to just easily access that. And of course, before we finish, I know that you are aware that all of my work is centered on self-care. The idea that we need to look within to do what's best for our health, our lifestyle, and our relationships. I really believe that the way that we take care of ourselves shifts through the years, also through the seasons. And I'd love to know, what is self-care looking like for you these days as we're in the autumn phase of
Mm.
2021? What is lighting you up the most in your life and your self-care?
Meditation,
Mm.
deep, deep meditation. And it doesn't even have to be, because I think a lot of us are like, okay, but what does that look like? And we get in our heads. It's not about the how, but it's just, this is a season of really deep reflection and turning in to see, just like the season right now, what needs to die off, so that when the rebirth does happen, I'm ready for it. So it's just a lot of reflection and sitting and being with myself.
I love that. And as a mom of a 2-year-old, it can feel maybe like that's not as accessible, but I know that for you, you prioritize that. And
Yeah.
then, and for myself, I would prioritize that quiet time also when my kids were little. I still do it. And
Mm-hmm.
it helps us show up so much more powerfully and present for
Yes.
them, right? There's so
Yes.
much to be said for that. So I love that that is what you were doing.
Mm,
Oh, Keri,
yes.
thank you so much for sharing your story and for giving us an overview of life as a coach that is helping women to really reconnect to themselves and to show up in a beautiful, more open, empowered way. And I'm really grateful that we are in contact, and I look forward to following your work and continuing to share it.
Yes. Thank you so much. And the work that you do is, I just love witnessing you and being a part of your community. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm, thank you. And for those of you listening, thanks for being here today. And we would love to know what resonated for you in this conversation. What kind of things come up for you when you think about sitting quietly with yourself and thinking about maybe what needs to die off in your life during this reflective season? We would love to hear. Please
Mm.
tag us on Instagram and let us know. And we will see you again in another episode soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Big blessings. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.